We're back on the Morning Brew with Friends, and we're joined with Paul Gessing, the president of Rio Grande Foundation, and Lieutenant Governor John Sanchez, sticking around to continue the conversation because you are the president of Rio Grande Foundation that is a think tank, and you are an economist, and you guys, I'll let you say it because, what's your take on the economy and how it should work?
Well, generally we are for leaving businesses and entrepreneurs alone to do what they do best, which is create jobs, create neat products, and ultimately create wealth that makes our state, our city, and ultimately our country a better, more prosperous place to be.
And that includes things like right to work, like we were talking about. How does that fit into your philosophy? And what does that mean from an economic perspective, right to work?
Well, a lot of policies do something, and it's kind of technical for the early morning, but...
we're smart enough.
All right. It creates friction. They create barriers between two people or two businesses doing business together. So the more rules, regulations, and we're all for basic rules and regulations to protect consumers, the environment, et cetera.
Right, you want to have things that make sure the food you're eating is safe.
Right, but if you build that up too much, you create situations where it's more difficult than it should be for those businesses, for those people to create the wealth that they should be out creating. And that's what we're really about. Right to work is one that makes it more difficult for businesses to want to come to your state. Because when they invest, say Boeing being a primary example, they build these massive factories. I've toured Seattle and there's some of the factories up there. And then a union goes on strike and that factory sits empty for weeks.
They can't build their 777s.
That's extremely unattractive to businesses when they have hundreds of millions of dollars sitting vacant without creating any wealth. So they look for, like most businesses that do that kind of manufacturing, look for places where they're not going to have those obstacles to overcome.
And Dan, if I could just agree with Paul.
Please,
business is like water. It'll follow the path of least resistance. And I think that's exactly to Paul's point, is that we're trying to do everything we can from both the regulatory, rule-making, statutorily, to make sure that it's easy to do business. Let's not give excuses or reasons for people not to invest or to reinvest in New Mexico. So, that's kind of the philosophy that we've taken in the administration, and I know the Rio Grande Foundation feels the same way.
Yeah. Is there an economic impact to this that you've seen? I know that recent states, Kentucky, Michigan, they've all gone right to work in the last 2 or 3 years. Have you seen economic benefits from that?
Well, I believe you're referring to Indiana, not Kentucky.
Yes.
But yes, Indiana in particular saw a dramatic increase in the number of jobs and businesses being created. Now, it's difficult. There's no science in economics. There's no way to create a duplicate New Mexico to go forward, one right to work, one non-right to work. So you have to work under real-world economic conditions. But there's 24 right-to-work states, 26 non-right-to-work states. The 24 right-to-work states are generating more jobs, creating more opportunities. More people are moving to those states.
What about wage growth? Is that increasing in those states?
The wage is growing faster in the right-to-work states. Now, some will say, well, wages are lower in those right-to-work states. But when you're talking about actual living expenses and the ability to live in a place, it's cheaper in a right-to-work state. It's a higher personal income.
Yeah. And when it comes to other things the state is working on right now, like the LEADA funding and increasing the closing fund, I mean, do those things really help on the ground economic development?
Well, we're first and foremost proponents of the right to work issue.
Yeah.
We're a little more skeptical about using some of this taxpayer dollars to go and attract businesses. New Mexico's got a somewhat dubious track record of investing in businesses, Shot Solar, Eclipse Aviation.
See, I look at those as wins, and this is me as economic reporter at Albuquerque Business First. Shot Solar, though it lasted 5 years, and we spent some money on that. We had 120 jobs for 5 years. You look at Eclipse, we had almost 2,000 jobs for almost a decade, and now the company's back on the ground building planes again. That wouldn't have happened without state investment, right?
Arguably, it would not have. But our philosophy is, again, the blocking and tackling, do the basics, right to work being a primary one, and at some point, perhaps as soon as next year, serious tax reform.
Do you think that's in the cards, Lieutenant Governor?
Well, I think so. I think as we continue to build success and have momentum, I think you're going to see more and more legislators see the net results of there. But to Paul's point, look, those incentives aren't the end-all or the panacea to our problems, but what they do is once we put in the structural fundamentals of our economy, which is, in a sense, right to work. Again, I believe that tort reform should be it. As we start to have reforms in education and we build the fundamentals of a foundation, then we won't have to use these other incentives to bring people here because it'll be naturally put in place where businesses will look to New Mexico as a place that's easy to do business at.
Just real quickly, we got the weird gross receipts tax. Is that a nightmare? Is that something we need to change, and how do we do it?
That is absolutely.
I know we've only got 1 minute, but
That's a huge problem, yes, and it is unfairly taxing entrepreneurs and small business people because when you pay a salary to somebody, that's not taxed under gross receipts tax. When you contract with somebody, and generally if you're a small business, you're not going to hire a full-time accountant, you're not going to hire a full-time lawyer, et cetera. You're paying 7% in Albuquerque, and it's soon to rise more than likely in other areas of the state as well. You're paying an additional fee on top of what you'd pay in another state, and it makes New Mexico unattractive.
wow. Well, we got, you can read all about, you have a million position papers on this at RioGrandeFoundation.org, and follow him on Twitter. He tweets at me all the time. He's one of my favorite Twitter guys. What is your Twitter handle?
At P. Gessing.
At P. Gessing, and he's, every day there's something interesting coming out of his Twitter feed. Next week, you guys going to stick around for the rest of the show?
Yes.
Excellent. We're coming back with Bernalillo County Sheriff Manny Gonzalez as Undersheriff in just a couple of minutes on the Morning Brew with Friends.